Support for Carolina Business Review provided by Grant Thornton. Operating in more than 100 countries, our tax, audit, and advisory professionals specialize in helping companies unlock their growth potential. Blue Cross and Blue Shield of South Carolina, where healthcare is changing for the better. Find out how at ahealthysc.tv. And by Sunoco, a global manufacturer of consumer and industrial packaging products and provider of packaging services, with more than 300 operations in 35 countries.
Good economy or bad economy? Are we on the precipice of recession, or are there months or maybe even years left in this commercial expansion? Welcome again to the most widely watched source of Carolina business and public policy, celebrating our 25th year on the air. I am Chris William, and will policy and critical social issues get lost this year in the glare of election year theater? And what about one of the hottest real estate streaks since before the 08-09 meltdown? We have a lot to talk about, and we will in just a moment. And later on, the CEO of regional real estate firm Allen Tate, Pat Riley, joins us.
Major funding also by Novant Health, bringing you world-class technology, clinicians, and care when and where you need it. The Duke Endowment, a private foundation enriching communities in the Carolinas through higher education, healthcare, rural churches, and children's services. And by Blue Cross and Blue Shield of North Carolina. Who's responsible for rising healthcare costs? Join us and many others in a candid discussion at letstalkcost.com. On this edition of Carolina Business Review, Carl Blackstone of the Columbia Chamber of Commerce, Bob Morgan from the Charlotte Chamber of Commerce, and special guest Pat Riley, President and CEO of the Allen Tate Company.
Welcome to our program. Gentlemen, happy spring. Wow, it's great.
Good to be with you again, Chris.
Thank you,
great
Bob.
to be up here.
Carl, good to see you. Let's talk about this for a second. You cannot go to a town like Charlotte, Bob, Columbia, Greenville, Raleigh, Asheville, Charleston, take your pick, without seeing some pretty major commercial, but if you look below the surface a little bit, some pretty hot residential real estate markets. Bob, are we getting, a bit of a metaphor, are we getting over the tips of our skis on commercial development in some of our markets? Is there a concern at all about that, or are these the good old days right now?
Chris, from a chamber perspective, it's always the good old days, right? So, we are long into a national economic recovery, and Charlotte has enjoyed that. We happen to have, we're coming off of 3 very strong years for job growth. There's a great debate in our business. Do people follow jobs or do jobs follow people? It's a combination of the two. Companies need space. The more space we have, the more options we have to show our economic development prospects. So we always need more product, and it's beautiful to see that it's no longer just 1 or 2 submarkets where the commercial development is taking place. It's spread pretty widely throughout the community. The more we have to show, the more likely we are to land additional jobs and investment.
How do you come down on that, Carl?
I totally agree. I mean, the growth has been unbelievable in South Carolina, and I think the outlook looks great for continued growth. I don't see, unless we see a global slowdown, I think we're going to see a continued growth in Columbia, at least where we are. I don't see an end.
Does transportation, and this has been kind of, is like a Windows program, been kind of running in the debate around transportation, how do we best apply it, how to get money out of the General Assemblies for transportation. Does transportation, and Bob, I think of Charlotte, and I think of the North Corridor of Charlotte that has been a very acute and acerbic debate around I-77 and toll roads, but is that endemic of, is that just going to be the dark side of expansion? Is we're going to have issues like transportation?
When you're one of the fastest growing metropolitan areas in the country, yes, congestion comes with it. Now, part of what managed lanes on I-77 and tolls that are proposed elsewhere in the regional infrastructure, it's all about providing alternatives to congestion. Now, that's playing defense perhaps. The offense, what we're seeing now We've been at it since 1998, investing in our transit system, light rail to Pineville. The extension of light rail onto the campus of UNC Charlotte will take place, open in August of 2017. We're now seeing companies that want to be on that light rail. Blue chip, household name type companies that are intrigued with the idea that their young workers might be able to live and work along a transit line and not even need an automobile to live and work in Charlotte. And so that, plus the fact that it just sends a message that we're a community investing in the future. If you build it, they will come. That's certainly been the case with our transit investment. The
dark side of this transportation I referred to, Carl, are the repairs and the issues to date. And I'm looking at you and talking about Palmetto State and across that, but broadly. So you've got general assemblies, you've got municipalities concerned about getting roads up to code, let's call it that way. And then on top of it, think of Columbia and the Bull Street development and a new urban plan, a new transportation plan. How do you stack up on top of that going forward, getting a transportation plan? And oh yeah, by the way, getting the money for all of these upgrades. How do you do it?
You know, this is a byproduct of growing pains. This is growing pains, and this is a great problem to have, but it makes us, we're going to have to think and plan and do exactly what you're talking about. We've always been reactionary to some degree on our infrastructure. We're going to have to change our thought process and really think where the growth is, where what we need to do. Companies are doing that now. I mean, just this week we've seen a announcement from Norfolk Southern to take product out of Charlotte up to the intermodal port in Greer and down to the port of Charleston to take trucks off the road. So we've got to come up with additional plans like that to protect our infrastructure, but find ways to invest.
Do you think that the State House is going to have some meaningful money coming out of this session to address this? Do you get that sense?
There's going to be something that passes. Now, whether it's enough, that's to be determined. I think what we as a business community, in whether it's in Charleston or Greenville or Columbia, we want a recurring, sustainable way to improve our infrastructure. And so if that's with general fund dollars, that's fine, but we've got to have money coming every year to maintain our roads.
Yeah, in North Carolina, Bob, it passed fairly easily, this Connect North Carolina bond package, at least on primary day. Was that surprising that 2/3 of the folks in North Carolina that voted had supported that package?
The margin was very surprising to me.
Was it?
Yes, it was.
What does it say?
I think it says that the citizens of North Carolina understand we're one of the fastest growing states in the country. There's no free lunch. You have to invest in basic infrastructure. It's a strong affirmation of our university system, our community colleges, our state parks. People understand that. As you look at a margin like that, you wonder, was it maybe too modest?
You mean the size of the bond?
The size of it was $2 billion, well covered within the state's current revenues at a time that we're lowering the tax rate. Maybe we could have been a little more aggressive and included some transportation bonds. Maybe we could have done additional funds to help accelerate the growth of the universities and community colleges. You know,
and I want to ask this political question. I'm going to ask you both this. So in North Carolina, when you have such broad support for an initiative like this bond package, Bob, I wonder, you know, Republicans in North Carolina have taken it on the chin. Many people have said, look, Republicans in North Carolina don't get higher ed. They're cutting it. They're going against it. I'm not for or against that kind of rhetoric, but it does make me think, well, wait a minute. Is there a new day now around in North Carolina specific to education? Are there people that feel like whoever's in charge in North Carolina does have education as a priority?
Well, I think it's that, but Chris, I think it's a bigger challenge facing higher education. I think community colleges, at least in North Carolina, and certainly my perception, South Carolina does it as well, or maybe better, long ago learned how to put their ear to the economy. What are the workforce development needs of companies today and in the future, and they calibrate their programming to meet those needs. Higher ed, the universities across America have been a bit disconnected, a bit more disconnected from the economy. And I think there's certainly with new leadership in the last decade in Raleigh, there's a sense that the universities, yes, they have a unique role as it relates to higher ed, but that there's a greater role for them to play in being relevant to the economic development of our state. And I think with the new leadership at the university, with the prevailing sentiment of our General Assembly, I think we're seeing a move in that direction. And I think, frankly, that's a healthy thing.
Yeah. Okay, quick, about 30 seconds. Yeah. Governor Haley has come out for Ted Cruz. somewhat surprisingly, Senator Lindsey Graham has come out for Ted Cruz.
Right.
Does this at all surprise you that the political stripes of South Carolina have gone so far on the right-hand side?
I think so. I mean, there was the political thought was that she would stay out of. She had supported Rubio. Once he got out of the race, she would stay quiet. But no, she wants to go ahead with Cruz and against Trump. We'll see how it plays out. It's a risky move, no doubt about it.
Okay. Thank you, guys. We're going to bring our guest in just a moment. Next week on our program, his name is Dr. Fred Carter. He's the president of Francis Marion University, right in the heart of South Carolina. He will be our guest. And in 2 weeks, Bob Giolis is a name that is connected to the Research Triangle Foundation. Why that's important is he's the president and CEO of the Research Triangle Foundation, but why that's important is the Research Triangle Foundation has laid out a $2 billion renovation of Research Triangle Park after 50 years. We'll find out about the strategy of that vision in about 2 weeks. Our guest leads one of the Carolinas' few independently owned region-wide real estate firms with over 1,400 real estate professionals running from South Carolina's upstate to Raleigh, Durham, Chapel Hill. In addition to the firm boasts a family of companies from building to mortgage to relocation to corporate services. Joining us now is Allen Tate Company Chief Executive Officer Pat Riley. Pat, welcome to the program.
Chris, thank you. Thanks for having me.
When you look at real estate, Pat, in North and South Carolina, I mean, one word, wow. It seems like it's hotter than it was in 08 and before 08. Is that a fair assessment?
Yes, we're blessed. From you're talking about Raleigh to Greenville, South Carolina and beyond. The 85 corridor is the fourth most productive region in America and the 11th in the world. So we're not a secret anymore. So that growth that you're seeing, whether it's residential or commercial, is brought to you by immigration. Young people are coming here even without a job for the prospects to get one. You have parents and grandparents following children, second career, and coming here to retire here instead of Florida. And then you just have the corporate relocations that we were just talking about, the jobs that we're creating in this wonderful region. And it's a very diverse cluster of jobs. So it's a special place to be.
So is it people moving into the Carolinas? Is it the low cost of money? What is it that's fueling this boom in residential real estate?
As I mentioned, we are a second alternative, a big second alternative to Florida right now, because when you retire, you look at higher education, second career, medical, mountains, beaches, quality of life, big sports, big food. That plays out. Now, corporately, when I'm relocating, I'm looking at cost of living. Will my folks have housing that's affordability for my workforce? And will I have job readiness for them with all the wonderful institutions of higher learning and community colleges? We just got it all gone. We got it gone.
Yeah, it's a good problem to have. Bob?
Pat, the question on everybody's lips, there are apartments under construction on every corner above the Mint Museum. Is there a bust in the future around the apartment development?
There's a reason that they're being built and plentiful. Is number one, we took home ownership up to 74, 75%. Historically, since 1950, it was 62. We're now just down to 64 again. So all of those folks that owned homes that shouldn't have owned homes, because the federal government and politicians and we, the public, said home ownership is good. But we found out if you owned a home but you couldn't pay for the furnace to get fixed, you shouldn't have been there. So we're taking home ownership from 74, 75 over the last 18 years back down to 62. It's 64 now. We're not quite there yet. So all those folks need apartments to live in. You had the millennials waiting twice as long to get into the home buying mode. We bought our first homes at 22, 23, had children at 25, 26, second home by 30. These young men and women are waiting till their 30s to have a partner, to make a commitment to a job. The job market was terrible. College debt was high. So there's a reason they're 8 years late to the dance. And then us boomers, we're clogging the thing up too, because at 64, 65, the boomers, our parents were already downsizing. We haven't downsized yet. So you have this huge void. So I may, as I downsize, go to an apartment, a luxury apartment, instead of maybe buying at 64, 65. I'm missing that next step, because when I look at that lower price home, I'm finding out a sticker shock. I'm saying, wow, maybe I'll just take that upper end luxury rental instead.
On that note, the millennials are fascinating to me to see the transition. What part of livability is included, or how attractive is livability relative to the price, location, and a smaller unit cost?
We've had our 4th year now of lack of inventory. I just told you the whys, but everybody wants the same thing. Everybody wants more quality, less square footage. They want to be convenient to their cleaner and to their cup of coffee. They want to have connectability. They want open floor plans. They want outdoor living. And you put that all together, the millennials, the boomers, the X, the Ys, and even my parents, if they're still living, everybody wants the same thing. So if you have that, it's going to sell very quickly.
Well, what does that do to the market of suburban lifestyle?
What's available in suburbia? That's what the builders are building now, and that's what we have to remodel too. It's amazing now the number of folks that are remodeling their homes, because in order to sell right now, you need to meet what the buyers want, and they're very picky today. They don't want to do the work, and they have the money to wait for what they want.
I want to follow up on a point Bob made about apartment homes, Pat. So apartment homes are being built at record numbers, no doubt. The average rent on a 2-bedroom home, at least in the Charlotte market, is over $1,100. What happens, if you can afford to be at the party, that's great. What happens to those where housing affordability is a big issue? Do we have, and I don't want to get into this political debate, is there a widening gap between those that can live in that kind of housing and those that can't? And what happens in an urban center like Columbia or Charlotte?
It is going to correct itself, because we don't do anything in moderation. We are overbuilding. To circle around full circle, who's living there, I answered. But we have overbuilt it, because the only thing you built during the 4 years of recession, the only money that was being lent was for apartment building. So we have overbuilt it. Now what that's going to mean is the price of rents will, over time in the next couple of years, come down. So that will help with the affordable side. But when you look at the affordable side, the big picture from Raleigh to Greenville, South Carolina, to get in a new home today, at the price of land, labor, and material, it's almost impossible to build a new home under $175,000 anymore. So transportation has got to be one of the relief valves for this along our rail lines. We're going to have to stack, and people don't mind being in less square footage, but they won't give up that convenience. So affordable housing, we're really going to have to concentrate on how we get developers. How do we subsidize a developer at the price of land they're paying to have an affordable housing component? It's going to have to be mandated in there, but it's also going to have to make sense at the price of land and labor and material.
Pat, I'd like to get a bit personal for a second. We lost a remarkable business leader last year, your mentor, my mentor, the namesake of your company. What is Alan Tate's legacy? He's a native South Carolinian, adopted Charlotte, his hometown, long ago. What legacy does Alan leave through your eyes?
I miss him too. My second daddy, vision. I joined him 25 years ago, and I knew him 15 years from afar before that. And what attracted me was his vision. And when I got down here and we rode on the Saturdays and Sundays, he knew where the next sewer lines and gas lines and water lines were going to be. He knew we were going to grow, and he wanted to make sure that we left this place better than we found it. He would look at housing styles. I was with him from Texas to Atlanta, and he would look at housing styles up to New Jersey, and he would say, Riley, aren't we blessed to be able to create something instead of tear it down, remodel it, rehab it? We'll be able to create a city, create a region, and to that, I'm blessed. And this community's blessed for that, because there's years on the Planning Commission, there's years on the Chamber. He's given so much back, and it was blood, sweat, and tears for the community college. He just really believed in workforce readiness too. That was his mandate.
And a great advocate of transportation, and great to see the Alan Tate Highway on a stretch of 485 that was named.
Trust me, toll roads and getting the toll, at least the right to toll. He has a lot of scars up there, and for the benefit of all of us.
Great.
What do you see next? I mean, in the next 25 years, what do you see between your stretch of Raleigh to Greenville? What do you think it looks like?
I'm very bullish for all the reasons I spoke. Now we're going to, when we see this, we're only increasing residential resale housing. Went up 5-6% last year, and it's going to be up 5-6% this year and next year. And you got to remember, we had half of our business went away for 4 years. So we got a lot of catching up to do. The medicine for this recovery, unbelievably so, is the medicine for this recovery has been lack of inventory. On one hand, it's terrible. On the other hand, it's what's bringing equity back. People who own homes before the recession now, they're back and ahead of where they were to start. People who maybe borrowed their equity in equity lines that were too fluent, all of a sudden now their equity's back in their home, so they can make another move. That plus the immigration and the price of money, still the price of money with the world conditions out there, it bodes very well. So new construction's up about 15%, but it's still in the Carolinas, we're half of what we used to do in new construction. Half. But resale side, 5-6% up, and appreciation up about 6 or 7%.
Really, with all the cranes in all these towns? And I know a lot of this is commercial as well, but Pat, with all the construction going on, we're still at half of the level.
Yeah, in America, well, just take Charlotte. I'll take Charlotte alone. 26,000 homes a year before the recession, and this year we might do 16.
Wow.
So if you're 10,000, 10 last year 8. So we're about 30,000 homes new just in the Charlotte region behind. America, 1.5 million, 1.8 million a year. And we might do 750 or 850,000.
Let me come back to something that you had referenced, and that is transportation. Do we need to be having a different dialogue about getting transportation right? You know, you've got those who feel like they are on the tail of the dog, and those that feel like they are the dog. What kind of public dialogue do we need to have about transportation to make sure that everyone at least feels included?
Well, we just finished the 2020 Vision Plan, Connect, where we took $9 million of federal dollars and we put that into studying transportation and trash and water quality and air quality and housing.
And this is in the city of Charlotte?
This is in the Charlotte region. All 15 counties participated. We have a plan. Now it's like anything else. Do we have the stomach to execute? Transportation, I kid my team because we were in the toll fight with my office. We have offices in all of these areas. And I ask everybody to raise their hand, stand up. How many people came from somewhere else? About 60% came from somewhere else. And I said, how many of you have had toll roads? They all raised their hand. I said, how many people like toll roads? Sit down. Everybody sits down. So the problem of creating this new region is we get here, we roll up the drawbridge and say, don't raise taxes. There's no politician will raise taxes. And we don't want toll roads, so don't condemn or criticize or complain without a solution. You came here because you love the vitality and the immigration and everything that's going good with it. How are we going to pay for it? So we have to ask those tough questions. So we have not raised residential real estate taxes forever, and no politician will run on it. But the reality is, compared to the services that we have garnered and love, annexation is over. We got here and we loved annexation. Up north, where everybody else came from, you didn't have annexation. You went to the suburbs, had your little world out there, and you said the city can fall. Here, guess what? We're at the end of the road in most of our areas. Annexation's over. Guess what? It's now, if to take these services we enjoy, we are going to have to look at raising property taxes and looking at tolls or other opportunities to get the job done.
We have about a minute left, Bob.
Pat, public education, you've spent decades fighting for public school reform. You're king for the day. What's one change you would make to public schools?
More flexibility in the individual districts and areas.
In what way?
Length of school day, length of school year, pay per performance, principal excellence and principal leadership, and pay for teacher, but pay per performance. We have to get about the state of North and South Carolina to follow Tennessee, and we have to dig into those tough subjects, and we have to get it right. There's other places out here, we don't have to research. The research is done. All we have to do is start executing some of the best practices that we're seeing as close as Tennessee.
You feel like there's going to, in about 10 seconds, you feel like there's going to be an appetite to be able to have that flexibility?
We're already seeing it.
Yeah.
We're already seeing a victory at the last session. We are going to look for some victories in this short session on both sides of the aisle. I think everybody in North Carolina and South Carolina are waking up to the fact that we cannot run one state in every area the same. We're not all agricultural. We're not all urban. We need to get it right.
Yeah, Pat, thank you. A lot of leadership in your years, and hope you're going to be around for a while, but thanks for being on the program.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, good to see you. Carl, welcome. Good to have you here.
Hey, thank you so much.
Bob, always, thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Enjoyed it.
Thank you. Until next week, I'm Chris Woody, and we hope your business and your weekend is good. Happy spring. Good night.
Major funding for Carolina Business Review was provided by the Duke Endowment, a private foundation enriching communities in the Carolinas through higher education, healthcare, rural churches, and children's services. Blue Cross and Blue Shield of North Carolina. Who's responsible for rising healthcare costs? Join us and many others in a candid discussion at letstalkcost.com. Grant Thornton, operating in more than 100 countries, our tax, audit, and advisory professionals specialize in helping companies unlock their growth potential. Novant Health, bringing you world-class technology, clinicians, and care when and where you need it. Sunoco, a global manufacturer of consumer and industrial packaging products and provider of packaging services, with more than 300 operations in 35 countries. Blue Cross and Blue Shield of South Carolina, where healthcare is changing for the better. Find out how at ahealthysc.tv. And by viewers like you. Thank you. Promotional consideration provided by Business North Carolina Magazine. For more information, visit carolinabusinessreview.org.